Now let me address quickly Michael Cohen. I see Professor Turley says the president is one more witness away from being in very, very serious trouble over there. No, he's not. Not in the least. I would ask Professor Turley to explain the two memos that came out of the Department of Justice in two different administrations. But even that aside, there's no criminal issue here whatsoever. Conspiracy to do something about an election, I heard some news guys say today. I don't even know what that means. I mean, let's just be blunt. The closest campaign that came to conspiring with the Russians was the Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC that actually spent money for opposition research and used unverified sources and information from the Kremlin. There's none of that. None of that when it comes to Donald Trump. So you're going to see all these non-experts sitting as experts, giving you their opinion on the Trump Tower meeting with the two Russians and on and on and on, and I would encourage you to ignore it. Now here's one thing that's not being said. Michael Cohen. The only reason Michael Cohen is important is the only reason Stormy Daniels was important, and that is to attack the president. Michael Cohen either will be or should be disbarred. He's a desperate man. He has done something, apparently, for which the feds are investigating. I keep hearing about these medallions and taxis. I don't know what they're talking about. But you can be assured that if it had something to do with Russia or the campaign, that Mueller would not have handed this off to the Southern District of New York. But there was a piece just a few days ago in the Washington Examiner which raises issues that I've been looking into myself. Michael Cohen's tapes of Trump could get him disbarred, experts say. Now, that doesn't bother CNN. Any Stormy Daniels in a storm, that's fine by them. Attorney Michael Cohen could lose his law license as the result of secretly recording former client President Trump, experts say. And when I read this to you, when you think about it, understand why it is so vitally important to have a lawyer who keeps your information confidential, the principle of attorney-client privilege, and attorney work product. Because otherwise, you cannot get a fair case, a fair hearing, a fair trial, if you cannot have a lawyer who is 100% your advocate. Now, if you hire a lawyer for the purpose of committing a crime, that's a different issue. But that's not what took place here. Despite the most aggressive and egregious spin by certain phony pseudo-reporters on CNN and MSNBC. You are allowed to pay somebody to be quiet in the course of a business transaction, in the course of your personal life, whatever it is. You're not obstructing justice because there's not an investigation. You're not contributing to a campaign because you're not using campaign money, not even in-kind campaign money. These are events that took place prior to the campaign. And you're dipping into your own resources in order to make a payment. You can make a payment through an LLC. You can make a payment directly. You can make it with a check. You can make it with cash. It doesn't matter. And yet they debate this endlessly. But imagine if your attorney could tape you, not for the purpose of protecting you, but for the purpose of having something on you just in case. You hire an attorney because you have a business issue you want to deal with, an employment issue you want to deal with, a divorce matter you need to deal with, whatever it is, a custody case. You have every reason to expect your lawyer's not going to tape you. Now, in the 2016 conversation that they're endlessly reporting about, took place in New York. It's perfectly legal to record but not if you're a lawyer. I wouldn't be surprised if he was disbarred. Absolutely not, said Bennett Gershman, a former prosecutor in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office and an expert on attorney misconduct at Pace University's law school. We've so many different scenarios where it's possible that he engaged in ethical misconduct. You start piling one episode on top of another, I could see at the very, very least a suspension, said Albany Law School professor Vincent Bonaventre. I don't think they're going to slap his wrist if any of this is true, he said. There's a complex web of potential offenses within New York's rules of professional conduct for attorneys that Cohen may have committed, experts said. Dishonesty is one potential offense, experts said, including if Cohen helped Trump lie about an affair with McDougal. Or Cohen may have tripped a conflict of interest rule by recording conversations for his own benefit rather than his clients. Or he could have violated other rules in disclosing the conversations. Quote, obviously, lawyers don't do this. This is extraordinary, probably unprecedented, Gershman said about secretly recording a client. The only reason he would do it is to protect himself. And protecting himself over protecting clients is something lawyers are not able to do. It's unethical. Dan Abrams, a New York City-based attorney who specializes in legal malpractice and business litigation, said a 2003 opinion from the New York City Bar's Ethics Committee refused to say secretly taping a client could never be ethically permissible, but they also said it would be rare to have circumstances where an attorney secretly taping a client could be ethically permissible. Rule 1.6 of the New York Rules of Professional Conduct requires attorneys to keep client communications confidential. But Abrams pointed to Rule 1.8b as saying in sum and substance a lawyer cannot use information gained in the representation to the client's detriment absent consent from the client. An attorney can be compelled to keep a client's secret even if the attorney-client privilege does not apply to the secret, Abrams said. Not to get too complicated, that's a confidentiality rule. Confidentiality is even broader. And it goes on. And yet CNN keeps building up Michael Cohen. They keep building the guy up. He's absolutely disreputable. Whether or not he has formally violated any of the rules for practicing law in New York State, and I personally believe he has. Just my opinion. And that will eventually catch up with him. And when Giuliani goes on TV and he says he's already a dead witness, this in part is what he means. This in part is what he means. He's absolutely untrustworthy. And this kind of information would come up in any trial. But a trial for what? A trial for what? No offense has been committed by the president. I'll even go further. An indictment, by the way, is not a conclusion of the matter. No offense has been committed by Don Jr. or Jason or Kirshner. No offense has been committed by anybody in the senior echelon of the Trump world in this regard. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Let's go to Diana, Springfield, Illinois, on the Mark Levin app. How are you?
Hey, Mark, how's it going? Hey, we really appreciate everything you do here and stuff, and you keep going and get 'em.
Well, thank you. Illinois, the land of Lincoln and the land of Little Dick Durbin.
That's right. Well, yeah, Little Dick Durbin's right, you know, but in reference to this Michael Cohen stuff, okay, so how can he violated his attorney-client privilege getting them tapes and stuff. I want to know how that they can use those anyway. Even though
First of all, he violated confidentiality, not to be too technical, by making the tapes. And then in my view, he violated attorney-client privilege by turning them over, assuming they involve his client, not just the press, to any government official. Your question is, how can they use the tapes? Well, we have a federal judge. She's extremely liberal in Manhattan. Her name is Kimba Wood, and she appointed a master who is also a very liberal woman who is overseeing this project of eviscerating what's left of attorney-client relationships, and she's calling the shots. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm listening.
So she's sitting there as a special master and making the decisions, apparently. Now, the leaking, that's separate and apart. Either Cohen or Lanny Davis and or somebody else in that circle. I'm not saying it's Lanny. I don't know. They're obviously leaking. Yeah. And that in itself could be the basis for disbarment.
And, you know, it's so important. This midterm election, I think, is going to be one of the most important that we've ever had, you know. And I just hope that people vote Republican, because if them Democrats get in charge, we're going to be in big trouble, you know.
You know, Steve Bannon said something the other day, or maybe it was today, I'm not sure, which I have now been saying for some time. And that is, in this particular election, in this midterm, you better vote for Republican. Not because you expect them to secure the border, not because you expect them to cut the spending, because they're not, but in order to protect the President of the United States. Because if they take the House, it's over. They will. I talked about this. I've talked about it repeatedly. They will bog him down in subpoenas and document requests and investigations. They will rip his staff to pieces. They will stop any appropriations bills from going through. They will shut down the government. We will have absolute anarchy.
And you're right. The way that they treat this president, it's unprecedented. I've never, ever seen or heard anything like what they're doing to this man. And the press is just it's out of control. Every night.
Because it's not really a free press. And I've been spending a lot of time talking about this. In the sense that certainly they're free to broadcast, free to print, free to speak, that sort of thing. But it's not a free press in the sense that a free press was intended. What they're doing is making it more and more difficult for the republic to function. And what they're trying to do is so burden this president. When you see these people yelling questions, they're not really questions that we don't already know about. They're doing it to disrupt him. So to disrupt this presidency, undermine it, and sabotage it. I mean, that's the truth, isn't it?
If the elections go okay and the Republicans stay in charge, that they'll finally be done with this Russian stuff. Because
I don't know about that. Mr. Mueller is he's not he doesn't exist as a consequence of any election. And that's part of the problem. All right, Diana, I appreciate your excellent call. Let's continue, shall we? Helen, Westchester, New York, the great WABC. Go.
Mark, this is a great pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you.
I was just listening to your last caller, and I wanted to just say something on that. The constant beat of the liberal drum is really starting to hurt the silent majority in this country. I don't think we're going to stand for anything if the House is taken over by the Democrats. It's not the end. Maybe just the beginning, because we have had enough. And there's
well, maybe it's the beginning of the end. It's not enough to have enough. It's not enough to have enough. We have people who are now ruling over us, and they do not want to give up their power. And if they get more power, it's one thing to be furious in the privacy of your home, at your dinner table, in your workplace, in your own mind, and so forth and so on. But I do not want to, I can't overstate this, which is we are, in my view, and I've been saying this is, and people rejoice, oh, what do you mean? We're moving towards a tyranny. We are in somewhat of a soft tyranny. That's not to say you can't see movies, you can't buy your iPhone, this, that, and the other. But when it actually comes to many aspects of your life, the circle of liberty is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, whether it's choosing health care, whether it's what your kids are free to say on college campuses, and on and on and on. So it's not enough for people to say, we're not going to put up with it anymore. Well, apparently we are. What are we going to do?
Something a little more drastic, I believe, is on the horizon. It's happened before in America. And
but you know what? When societies collapse and everything you have is destroyed or potentially destroyed, it's not a very pretty thing. And sometimes the good guys don't win.
No.
All right, my friend, I appreciate your call. I very much do. Tim, Shreveport, Louisiana, XM Satellite, go.
Mark, if I was to be able to pick Attorney General, you were the man.
Thank you. I'd need a recess appointment because something tells me I'd probably get 3 votes in the Senate.
You were my first pick when President Trump was elected, but I feel like you made the statement about us being insignificant. We already feel insignificant. And we feel like we can't do anything when you have politicians that lie. They lie against the accomplishments of this administration. They lie about in their investigations. I don't understand how do we hold them accountable? There's got to be some way to hold these people accountable for all the lies they tell.
I want to send you a copy, so Mr. Producer and Mr. Call Screener, don't hang up, Tim, of the Liberty Amendments. And I want you to become active in this in Louisiana.
I think they ought to be in the government classes in every high school as textbooks.
Thank you. Thank you. You're very, very kind. Don't hang up, Tim. Appreciate it. One of the things I love about doing this show is the diverse geography, the diverse accents. And you know what? It makes me feel really great, and I hope it does with you, too. We're talking to a lady from New York City, talking from a gentleman from Shreveport, Louisiana, talking to a lady from Springfield, Illinois, all conservatives, all constitutionalists, all patriots, all proud of their country. That should put a smile on your face, and that should make you feel at least a little better. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.